binding, book binding in Ethiopia. The cover, wooden board cover, as you see. Everything is made at home. So, this is 15th century manuscripts.
For centuries, Western Bibles contained just 66 books, but in the Ethiopian highlands, a hidden canon of 81 survived, guarded in mountain monasteries, and copied in the ancient language of Ge'ez. One book known as the Second Genesis reveals a creation story, and a cosmic order so radical that Rome silenced it and erased it from Western memory. Why did Ethiopia keep this secret? For what secret? For 1,700 years? And what did Rome fear about its vision of angels, calendars, and the origins of human law? The answers begin where Western history draws a curtain, and Ethiopia opens a forbidden book. Ethiopia's Bible is unlike any other in Christianity. Its canon stretches to 81 books, far beyond the 66 of the Protestant Bible or the 73 recognized by Catholics. Here, texts like Enoch, Jubilees, and the 3 Maccabean are read as scripture, not as hidden relics or apocrypha. This breadth reflects a tradition shaped before the Western canon hardened, when early Christian communities debated which stories and laws would define their faith. At the heart of this tradition stands the Book of Jubilees, a text Western churches left behind, but which Ethiopian monks preserved and read aloud for generations. In Ethiopia, its status is not marginal or secret. Jubilees is copied, chanted, and studied as part of the living canon, its teachings woven into church liturgy and religious law. The language of these texts reveals another layer of continuity. Scriptures are preserved in Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic tongue that shares roots with Hebrew and Aramaic, where Western Christianity moved to Greek, then Latin, and finally to local languages. Ethiopia's liturgy remained anchored in Ge'ez. This linguistic fidelity acts as a time capsule, preserving not just the words but the worldview of early Judaism and Christianity. For the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the canon is not a closed list, but a living inheritance, shaped by centuries of careful transmission. The presence of Jubilees among these books is a reminder that the boundaries of scripture were never universal. Instead, they reflect choices made in distant councils and remote monasteries, choices that set Ethiopia's biblical tradition apart from the rest of the Christian world. Steep mountain ranges and arid deserts have long shielded Ethiopia's religious heartland from outside reach. For centuries, these natural barriers made the country nearly inaccessible to invading armies, to traders, and even to missionaries from the Roman and Byzantine worlds. Monasteries rose atop cliffs and hid within remote valleys, turning isolation into a fortress for faith and knowledge. Inside these stone sanctuaries, monks became guardians of scripture. The practice of hand-copying sacred texts began soon after Christianity took hold in the 4th century. Each generation of scribes worked by candlelight, copying from older manuscripts. Their careful script in Ge'ez preserved not just language, but memory. Colophons at the end of ancient books often record the names of scribes and the monasteries where they worked, sometimes noting that a book was copied from an even older volume kept safe in the library. The oldest surviving manuscripts of the Book of Jubilees date back to the 1300s, but monastery catalogs and records point to a far older tradition. Monasteries, like Dabra Libanos and the island communities of Lake Tana, maintained libraries where the Book of Jubilees was listed among their treasures. Even as fire, war, and time destroyed countless manuscripts, the rhythm of copying never stopped. This chain of transmission stretches unbroken for 1,700 years. Ethiopia's independence, never colonized long-term, meant that no foreign power could dictate which texts were sacred or erase those that did not fit outside official doctrine. In these mountain strongholds, the Book of Jubilee survived, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, a living link between the earliest days of Christianity and the present. Jubilees opens its creation account not with the words of Genesis, but with a cosmic ledger already in place. Before the first beam of light split the void, the text describes a realm where angels existed, assigned their ranks and duties, in a world of pure spirit. The text says these beings were brought into existence in the very first week, before the physical universe began to take shape. Their presence is not a footnote, but a foundation, and the angels, especially those called the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification, are witnesses and participants, their roles inscribed in what the text calls the heavenly tablets. These tablets are more than metaphor. They are the divine archive, a record of history, law, and prophecy written before any mountain rose or river flowed. Every event, every commandment, every festival is mapped out in advance, etched into these celestial records. The idea that Moses received not just a spoken law but a vision of these eternal tablets at Sinai is a claim that appends the familiar story. Here, the law does not emerge from history. It precedes history, existing in the mind of God and the order of heaven before time itself. This vision of creation divides reality into two realms, one spiritual and one physical. The spiritual world comes first, populated by the angelic host and governed by the order of the heavenly tablets. Only then does the physical world follow, crafted in the image of this higher reality. The Book of Jubilees insists that the structure of time, the laws of nature, and even the calendar itself are reflections of this eternal pattern. The universe is not a blank canvas, waiting for meaning. It is a pre-existing design, a shadow of the order written above. Jubilee structures its entire narrative around cycles of time called Jubilees, 49-year periods that repeat in a pattern of 50, totaling 2,450 years from creation to Moses. This system is not just a way of marking history, it is a claim that history itself is predetermined, unfolding according to a schedule set before the world began. The angels, as keepers and messengers of this order, move between realms, ensuring that what is written above is carried out below. The implications are profound. If the law, the calendar, and even the events of history exist first in the spiritual realm, then human actions become enactments of a script already written. The role of the angels, the authority of the heavenly tablets, and the existence of a two-realm cosmos all challenge the Genesis narrative familiar to the West. In Jubilees, creation is not a spontaneous act, but the realization of a plan, one guarded and revealed by beings whose story Western Christianity would later push to the margins. This vision would shape not only Ethiopian theology, but also the boundaries of what could be accepted or rejected by the churches of Rome and Byzantium. The Book of Jubilees presents a world where the line between heaven and earth is thin, and it is actively maintained by ritual and law. The Sabbath, for example, is not a human invention or a local custom. According to Jubilees 2, the Sabbath is woven into the very fabric of creation. It is first kept by God and the angels in the spiritual realm, long before Adam draws breath. The text insists that this weekly rest is eternal, observed in heaven as a perpetual sign of order. When humans are created, they are not simply given a new commandment. They are invited to join a cycle that predates the world itself. To keep the Sabbath on earth is to mirror an unbroken celebration taking place above, a direct link between human action and divine rhythm. Adam's creation is described in terms that leave little room for gradual development or trial and error. He is formed, according to Jubilees 3, with knowledge already complete. The text says, Adam is taught the names of every animal and plant, not in a language of his own invention, but in Hebrew, the language of the angels and the law. This detail is more than symbolic. In the world of Jubilees, Hebrew is not just a tool for communication. It is the medium through which divine order is expressed. Adam's naming of the animals is an act of stewardship and of alignment with the heavenly tablets, where every name and law is already recorded. The law itself is not revealed gradually or as a response to human failure. Instead, Jubilees claims that the commandments and instructions given to Moses at Sinai were already known to Adam. The Sabbath, dietary rules, and even sacrificial practices are presented as part of an original blueprint, handed down from the very beginning. Adam is cast as the first law-bearer, not merely the first man. He is depicted as a figure who receives and transmits the divine pattern, responsible for teaching it to his descendants. In this view, human history is not a series of disconnected events, but the unfolding of a plan that was set in motion before time began. This perspective stands in sharp contrast to the Western canon, where law and language develop through history, shaped by covenant and crisis. In Jubilees, the foundation is timeless. The Sabbath, the Hebrew tongue, and the commandments are not innovations, they are inheritances. Adam's role as the first linguist and lawkeeper places him at the center of a cosmic continuity, bridging the gap between the order of heaven and the unfolding story of earth. The calendar, the festivals, and even the structure of weeks and years are shown as reflections of a higher order, not subject to human adjustment or invention. This vision of creation and knowledge carries implications that reach far beyond ancient Ethiopia. If the law is older than humanity, then obedience is not a matter of cultural adaptation, but of cosmic fidelity. The Sabbath, as kept by Adam and the angels, becomes a test of alignment with the original design, a design that, according to Jubilees, Rome and the West would later obscure or reinterpret. The Book of Jubilees sets out a calendar that claims to reflect the very architecture of creation. It fixes the year at 364 days, divided into 4 quarters of 91 days each. Each quarter contains exactly 13 weeks, producing a year of 52 weeks with no remainder. Every festival and every appointed time falls on the same day each year, with no drift, no recalibration, and no need for leap years. Time in this system is presented as a closed circuit, immune to the confusion that plagued other calendars. This stands in sharp contrast to the lunar calendars favored by the Jerusalem priesthood and later by the Roman Church. Lunar months never fit neatly into the solar year, forcing priests to add days or entire months to keep festivals in season. The 364-day calendar, by contrast, claims to need no such intervention. Its structure is both mathematical and theological. By dividing the year into 4 even quarters, it mirrors the Genesis account, where the sun, the moon and the stars are set as markers of time. The calendar grid locks every holy day into place, year after year, without shifting. Jubilees chapter 6 verse 32 makes the claim explicit that the calendar is not just a tool for marking time, but a safeguard against error and manipulation. The text accuses those who follow the lunar system of corrupting sacred order, warning that their years will fall out of sync by 10 or 11 days, causing holy days to slip onto ordinary dates. This is more than a technical dispute. It is a charge that the very fabric of worship has been compromised. The calendar thus becomes a measure of fidelity, a way to preserve purity in a world prone to confusion and change. The predictability of the 364-day calendar removes the need for priestly authority to declare new months or to adjust the year. Anyone who knows the pattern can calculate the dates, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of sacred time. In the ancient world, controlling the calendar meant controlling access to festivals, rituals, and the communal life that defined identity. By making the calendar transparent and fixed, Jubilees undermines the exclusive power of the priesthood and any institution that claims the right to set the rhythms of worship. This vision of time as a perfect, divinely ordered system posed a direct challenge to later church authorities. The Roman calendar, with its cycles and imperial festivals, required constant adjustment. The fixed calendar of Jubilees left no room for adaptation. Its insistence on a mathematically perfect year was a theological and political statement, one that threatened the foundations of centralized religious power. Church authorities in Rome faced a text that threatened the very architecture of their growing institution. The Book of Jubilees, with deep roots in Hebrew tradition and its claims of a cosmic order, stood outside the boundaries Rome sought to draw around Christian doctrine. 5 core objections shaped its exclusion from the Western canon. First, the prominence of angels in Jubilees unsettled the theological hierarchy. The text describes angels as active participants in creation, mediators of law, and keepers of the heavenly record. For a church, defining Christ's supremacy above all spiritual beings, this angelology blurred lines. Rome insisted must remain clear. Second, Jubilees insist that the law, the Torah, existed before creation itself, written on heavenly tablets, and revealed to Moses as a preordained script. This undermined the Church's teaching that Christ's covenant replaced the old law and threatened to elevate Mosaic law to a status equal to or above the Gospel. Third, the 364-day calendar in Jubilees bypassed priestly and episcopal control. Its fixed structure required no human authority to set feast days, stripping church leaders of their power to regulate sacred time. In an age when calendar control meant control over worship and community life. This was a direct challenge to ecclesiastical order. Fourth, the text's vision of prophecy as fixed and predetermined, etched on heavenly tablets, left little room for the church's interpretive authority. If prophecy was already sealed, bishops and councils lost the power to define doctrine through new readings of scripture. Finally, Jubilees elevates Hebrew as the language of creation, law, and worship. In a church increasingly centered on the Greek and Latin, this preference threatened the linguistic unity Rome worked to establish. Each of these objections was less about heresy than about authority, and the power to define what counted as Christian truth. In 1947, the silence of the Judean desert broke with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among the fragments pulled from the caves at Qumran, scholars identified pieces of a text long preserved in Ethiopia, but almost unknown in the West, the Book of Jubilees. Over the next decade, archaeologists uncovered 15 separate Jubilees manuscripts from 5 different caves, each written in Hebrew, and dating as far back as 160 to 150 BCE. These fragments, catalogued as 4Q216 through 4Q221 and 11Q12, showed a text that matched the Ethiopic version almost word for word. Paleographers analyzed the script, confirming its age through the style of writing and the material of the parchment. The evidence pointed to the late Second Temple period, a time when Jewish sects fiercely debated the shape of sacred tradition. Jubilees, it turned out, was not a marginal curiosity, but the 6th most common work found at Qumran, outnumbered only by Psalms, Deuteronomy, Isaiah, Exodus, and Genesis. Its presence in so many copies revealed its popularity among the Essene community, who valued its vision of a world governed by heavenly law and a perfect calendar. James van der Kam, a leading scholar of ancient Judaism, compared the Qumran fragments with the Ge'ez manuscripts preserved in Ethiopian monasteries. He found the Ethiopic translation to be literal, sometimes even preserving readings lost in the Hebrew. The discovery in the desert did more than authenticate Ethiopia's tradition. It proved that Jubilees was an original voice from the heart of Jewish history, not a later invention or a local curiosity. The survival of its text in both sand and stone across continents and centuries stands as a verdict that only the evidence could deliver. Today, the Book of Jubilees remains canon in Ethiopia, while the West still debates its absence. As digital archives make ancient texts accessible worldwide, questions of authority and tradition resurface. The meaning of creation and who controls that story shapes fate and history now more than ever. Some truths are not lost, they are waiting to be read. What would you preserve and why?